Welcome back to another episode of The Exit Plan. Today's guest runs his business like it's always for sale. Not because he's selling, but because he says that's the only way to build something worth buying.
Yeah, it was really interesting because when you first hear numbers like that, certainly the 100 million in revenue by 2006, when the size of the company we were, it was sub 10 million at the time, you kind of scratch your head and you go, what have they been taking here in Canada? That's crazy growth. But then when you look at the people that were being assembled, I hate to be cheesy, but almost like assembling the Avengers together, and the passion and the energy. And it wasn't even a question of, are we going to do this or not? It was a do or die. We are making this happen.
Alex Reid helped scale 1-800-GOT-JUNK to 300 locations, wrote a #1 best-selling book, took a company public, and is now a franchisee himself. So he has seen it from every angle: corporate, operator, investor. Alex, let's get into it. I want to start when you moved from London to Vancouver with a 2-week hotel reservation, knowing nobody. And within a few months, you said you were calling 300 strangers cold to figure out the local entrepreneur scene. Why did you do this? Why did you go to Vancouver? What did that look like? I need to know.
Well, what a great start. Thanks so much, Alex. And yeah, just jump straight in there. Yeah, so no, it was quite a while ago now. And yeah, I had a great job with American Express in the UK, but decided that wasn't really where I wanted to spend the rest of my life. Settled on Vancouver, moved there, like you just said, didn't know a single person. Had a 2-week hotel reservation. Literally got off the airplane. It was a cold, wet February evening. I remember it well in Vancouver. And I was like, what have I done? And everyone back home was like, well, this is either a stroke of genius or you're just completely crazy. And yeah, I think the jury's still out, like 25 years later. I'm not entirely too sure. But yeah, giving up the corporate job with like the golden handcuffs and all things like that to embark on a grand adventure to land unknown. But I just wanted something different in life. I wanted more of that entrepreneurial adventure. I wanted to be able to build something. I wanted to just be able to create a life that was different. So yeah, like you said, when I arrived, 2-week hotel reservation, didn't know a single person in town, wasn't moving to Vancouver with a job already in the bag or something like that. And so first thing I had to do was figure out somewhere to live, because 2-week hotel reservations end pretty quickly. And then, yeah, next thing was just trying to get established, figuring out what am I going to do in this beautiful city. And there were a few distractions in the summer in Vancouver. It's a beautiful city. You got the ocean, the mountains. But as I didn't know anybody, yeah, I could rely on like job boards and things like that. But I didn't have a network. I didn't have a tribe, a community. So I literally just started picking up the phone and calling entrepreneurs, calling business owners, just saying, hey, look, I'm new to town. I would love to talk about your business, what you're doing, what the market's like in Vancouver, and yeah, what the lay of the land is. No expectations. Not looking for a job, even though I was looking for a job. I just want to buy you a cup of coffee and have a chat and talk about your business. And I was pleasantly surprised just how many business owners and entrepreneurs were willing to spend 15, 20 minutes just talking about their business, what they're doing, who they are. I think people often get bombarded with asks and requests, and I want something from you, I'm trying to sell something to you. But when it was just a genuine, hey, I'm new to town, I don't know anyone, can I buy you a cup of coffee and just chat about your business, who you are and what you're doing? I think just approaching it in a genuine way like that, where I really was just genuinely curious about who they were and what they were doing, I was pleasantly surprised, like I said, just how many people were open to having that conversation.
I always give
Maybe they
advice.
sense maybe they sense the fear in my voice as well. Like, I desperately need to do this.
I always give advice to folks, like if you reach out thoughtfully, you'll be surprised by how willing people are to give their time to those that they can tell are either in a not that you were, but either in a tough spot or needing advice or transitioning or looking to start their own business. Anyone that's on that path to go do something great, I think people recognize it, especially in how it's communicated and how the ask is made. And it sounds
Absolutely,
like you
yeah.
did exactly that. Why Why Vancouver of all the place? Did you, no connection there? It sounds like. And so, did you just spin a globe and put your finger down, or what landed on
How did you know?
Vancouver?
Did you hear me talk about that before? No, I I was actually in on a vacation in New Zealand at the time, skiing, hiked to the top of this mountain. My buddies were coming up behind me, so I had a good probably half an hour before we were going to ski down the other side of the mountain. So I'm just sitting there looking at the world around me. Maybe the air was a bit too light up there. Um, but no, I was sitting at the top of this mountain, about to ski down the other side, just thinking about life, going back to the UK, working for a big corporate company, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. To this day, I still say Amex is a phenomenal company. I still have my Amex card in my wallet. At the time, my Amex bill every month was more than my Amex salary, so there was something definitely wrong with that. But no, I just started thinking about what do I want to do in life and where do I want to go and what kind of city do I want to live in. I wanted the mountains, I wanted the ocean, I wanted a city. I wanted something where there was an entrepreneurial scene and you could build something. So I just started thinking about all the places in the world I could have something like that. Cities like Sydney in Australia, but I'd lived there for a little while before. I knew Vancouver in Canada was a city like that. And I just came up with a list of cities and I said, I'm just going to rank them in an order and just basically go and live in each city for 6 months at a time until I find the city that I want to be in. Vancouver was number one on my list, and 25 years later, I'm still here. So I think it worked out pretty well. But yeah, just that scene, that entrepreneurial scene, that city that's going somewhere, and the ability to build something with your life was all appeals to me.
I love it. Like you said, there's probably not a lot of cities that check the mountain, the ocean, the entrepreneurial scene. It
Yeah,
starts to hone
it
in.
was a small list, I have to admit. Yeah.
So you get to Vancouver, the hotel, reservation is up, you find a place to live, you're calling entrepreneurs. How did you land? What did you find, I guess, and what did that coffee meeting look like, and what did it turn into?
Yeah, so again, like really inspired by a lot of the entrepreneurs I met, some of whom became lifelong friends, which is quite funny how that sort of works out. And it was funny, years later, I joined an organization called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, which is for founder, owner, operators of $1 million plus businesses, global organization. And it's definitely that peer-to-peer connectivity. And I encourage anyone to look at groups similar to that, be it EO or any of the plethora of groups out there to create that tribe and that peer-to-peer forum group. But I went through my list of all my people that I'd cold called, and so many of them were in this organization. It was quite funny. And they were like, I remember you from like a couple of years ago. But when I was having those conversations, um, I was finding a lot of companies that were just kind of stagnant. This is the early 2000s. The economy wasn't great. There were not a lot of jobs out there. And a lot of companies were either in survival mode or they were just kind of, you know, just chugging along. Like they were like, oh, we're happy with our 5% growth this year, or we did okay last year. We're going to try and maintain what we did last year this year. And I wasn't getting a lot of passion and energy and vibrancy from people, which is fine. No hard feelings. But then I came across this one company, 1-800 Got Junk. At the time it was Brian Scudamore, who's still the founder and CEO there. And then Cameron Herold, who has gone on to do phenomenal things since then as well. He was the COO. And getting to meet both of those guys and chat with them and look at what was back then an emerging franchise. It was a fairly small company. There was only one brand,
Yep.
800 Got Junked. I've obviously got multiple brands since. We had a footprint in the US already, a Canadian company with a small footprint in the US, but it was a small company. Not many people had heard of junk removal back then, or this concept of having someone come into your home and pick up the items and take them away for you. So it was a small, struggling company. But they had this grand vision for where they wanted to go. It's called a painted picture. And I remember hearing Brian and Cameron talk about this painted picture and where they wanted the company to go. I'm going to really date myself now. By the end of 2003, and then by the end of 2006, what those milestones were, what the benchmarks were, what they wanted the company to look like, act like, feel like at the end of these stakes in the ground. And what they were doing now to make that dream a reality. And it was contagious. The sparkle in their eye when they would talk about it, the passion with which they would talk about it, but also the openness and the vulnerability of, well, we want to be a franchisor that has 100 locations. Um, and we have no idea how we want to do that. Or we're on 100 million in revenue was the end of the 2006 goal, but we have no idea how we're going to do that. We have our plans and our visions and the daily actions that we're taking, but we need great people around the table to make this a reality and make this dream come true. And to see that vision, that passion, but also the vulnerability of we don't quite know how we're going to figure it out. We're kind of laying the tracks ahead of us as we go, and we need good people. And it was a collection of really awesome people at the time, pretty much all of whom have gone to do phenomenal things in life since. But to see that energy and that passion, it was kind of like, I've heard it described like that lightning in a bottle, where you've got
Yep.
a visionary CEO, founder CEO in Brian, a phenomenal integrator in Cameron as the COO, with a really strong vision for where we wanted to go. It was really compelling, and I jumped on board straight away. Now, a lot of people then went from was it a stroke of genius, or are you crazy, leaving Amex? And then I told everyone, well, I've left American Express and I'm now working for a junk removal company in Canada. Definitely, there was a lot of people who went, well, maybe he did actually go crazy. 'Cause, yeah, I never thought I'd move from the world of high finance to the world of junk removal. But no, it was a phenomenal experience. So, yeah.
Did you, and I think you kind of answered this, but like when you hear the vision of, we're going to be in 30 cities by the end of 2003, $100 million company by 2006. Did you actually believe those numbers when you signed on, or was it more you just believed in the team and you thought, even if we don't land on these numbers, I know that this group of people is going to be what takes us somewhere far?
Yeah, it was really interesting because when you first hear numbers like that, suddenly the 100 million in revenue by 2006, when the size of the company we were, it was sub 10 million at the time, you kind of scratch your head and you go, what have they been taking here in Canada? That's crazy growth. But then when you look at the people that were being assembled, I hate to be cheesy, but like almost like assembling the Avengers together, and the passion and the energy, and it wasn't even a question of, are we going to do this or not? It was,
Mhm.
we are doing this. Like that first stake in the ground, that 30 cities by the end of 2003. It wasn't even a question. It was, we are doing this. And the whole company, because that vision was on the wall, it was the first thing you'd see every day when you walk in. It was the first thing we'd talk about every day. Everyone was rallied around that goal and that vision. It wasn't a nice to have, aspirational, if we can do this. It was a do or die. We are making this happen. And I remember getting close to the end of 2023, we were at 29 of those cities, and we still had one to go. And we didn't have a lot in the pipeline in terms of prospects looking at that final city. And it was a entire company effort, drilling out who did you go to college with, who's your next door neighbor, who might know someone, how do we get into this city. This is before the days of the real emergence of social media, so reaching out was a little different back then. But it was an entire company effort rallied around how do we get this 30th city on the map. And if I remember correctly, it was late December 2023 when we actually signed the franchise agreement and got that city
You
on the
did
map.
it.
So, but we did it, and we'd said all along we were going to do it. And to have that vision, that energy that Brian and Cameron, put together in that painted picture, which is still a foundational cornerstone of the company today, and then to have the entire company aligned around that vision and that mission, and work towards it. Yeah, it's very unique to find that connectivity because, yeah, like you just alluded to, a lot of companies will put something aspirational on the wall, but not everyone really truly believes in it or buys into it. But one of the phenomenal things about 1-800 Got Junk back in the early days was everybody passionately bought into that simplicity of the vision. 30 cities by 2023. So, well, dating myself, 30
2003.
cities, 30 cities by 2003. It was, yeah, it was very simple, very clear, very actionable, and everyone understood in their role what they were accountable for in order to make that happen.
Well, and you believed in it so much that you ended up buying the New Jersey territory, right? And you ran it remotely with a general manager. Is this true?
Absolutely, yeah. So, after a few years, the whole team, certainly I was a small part in that team. We grew the company. We were over 300 locations, launched our third operating country, hit the 100 million in revenue. And yeah, it was then time to go and do something else in life. I had an opportunity with a group of people to go and buy New Jersey, which was phenomenal. I won't get into the joys of waste removal in New Jersey. I have never to this day seen an episode of Sopranos because it would terrify me, because I understand it's all true. But yeah, we purchased that. So yeah, there was a general manager. He was an equity partner. So he jumped in on day one. He was someone who was looking at buying a franchise himself, and I was like, well, why don't we do this together? And so yeah, having a remote business with 3,000 miles in between me and the business is unique. It has certain challenges, but I think it really there comes down to the systems, the processes, the communication that you have, and obviously the person on the ground. To this day, Drew, who still runs the business, it's a phenomenal business partner, a phenomenal operator, and to have that trusted person on the ground. You couldn't run a business from 3,000 miles away without that trusted, capable person who you just completely allow to thrive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you have any tips? Because I get asked a lot from people looking at franchise businesses on a number of things, but one of the questions is, if I want to hire a GM, or do I need to live within an hour or 2 hours of the location? And like you said, it's unique, but you proved that I think it can work. What are some of the ways that you made it work? Is it just having an exceptional GM that has equity and the right incentives, or how did you think about doing that and getting it right?
Yeah, so it's a question I hear all the time as well, and I think people often want to press the easy button. And I've been on the other side of the fence as well. I've had remote businesses where I hired the wrong person and it didn't work. And so, yeah, I think franchising is a fantastic business concept because I always say it gives you a leg up in startup. You've got all these systems, tools, processes that are baked in for you. You've got your franchisor providing support, infrastructure, guidance, coaching. So it really does lend itself well to a business that, as an investor, you can put a general manager in place to have them run the business for you. But whether it's a business that's 5 minutes down the road, 5 hours down the road, or 5,000 miles away, I think it really comes down to having the right general manager who has a background, has a passion, has that sparkle in their eye, I call it. But with you as the owner operator, putting the systems, processes, communication structure in place so that you know exactly what's going on. If you're abdicating the business versus delegating the business, you're going to get in trouble really quickly. If you're just saying, I've hired a general manager, I'm just going to go and let them do their thing, that's not a measure of success or a marker of success. If you can have the right accountability structures in place, the right meeting or communication rhythms in place, the right KPIs and benchmarks, so you know when the GM's performing and when they're not. But also critically, move out the way and let that person shine. If you're trying to control
Hmm.
all the little details and you're trying to fly the plane without even being on the plane, if that makes sense, then it's not going to work out. Whereas I always say, if you set a goal, you know, and it might be, I won't use a local reference, but it might be going from wherever you are now to the local airport. Well, usually there's more than one route to get to that airport. And if you've set a very clear goal, like, hey, we need to go from here to the airport in 30 minutes. Well, it doesn't matter if you have your route that you would go down, which gets you there in 28 minutes, and the GM has a different route they would go down, and it gets them there maybe in 27 minutes. You've both got there within the 30 minutes. So let the GM or let whoever's really driving the bus for you, use their creativity. Let them come up with their way of doing things. Don't like try and hold them back and tell them how to do every little detail. So just hire great people, set a clear vision, and then move out of the way and let that person thrive. But with
Yep.
the accountability structures in place so you know when things are not going according to plan.
Yep. I agree with that. I tell investors or team, other, entrepreneurs, hire the best people, then get the hell out of their way, or
Absolutely.
help clear
Yeah.
roadblocks that are in their way. Your kind of
Yeah.
job is to hunt bottlenecks with the rest of the team and go figure out what the biggest pinch point is and
Yeah.
solve for it. I
Yeah.
love
And
that
that's why I always say
advice.
don't abdicate the business, but delegate the business. Abdicating is where you just kind of I've hired someone, let them go
Going to
run
the
it.
beach.
Off you go. Just yeah, I'm going to the beach, send me the money. Well, you're probably never going to see the money. So
Yeah. What's something you learned as a franchisee versus being in corporate or at the franchisor level? Like what things cannot be replicated by being in the seat, as the operator, as the business owner?
in terms of franchising specifically, or
Yeah, or business ownership, but franchising specifically. But the set of experiences you had as an operator, as a franchisee versus an operator in the franchisor or other businesses.
well, I think as an operator in the seat as a franchisee, it's just like any business ownership. You know, entrepreneurialism is tough. Being a business owner is not easy. You're constantly worrying. It doesn't matter how successful your business is. You're constantly worrying about, you know, cash flow, HR challenges, risk management. Especially businesses where you've got a fleet of vehicles out in the field, or you've got people that you're trusting remotely to go do work. Um, you know, every business owner is awake at night at some point, stressing about their business and what's happening and what's going on. I would always say there's no easy button and there's no easy way to be successful. And, that's part of the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter whether your business is going super well, whether your business is challenged, the stress that you have to take on as a business owner that doesn't make it easy. And I think often when you're in more of a corporate role, you forget about the human element that some entrepreneurs are going through. You've got your checklist and your systems and your processes to follow, but it's the story behind that that often is what really is showing up for the entrepreneur. It's always it's a mindset battle quite often, and an entrepreneur may know what they're supposed to be doing, but if there's something going on that's creating a mindset blockage for them, that's holding them back, yeah, sometimes that's a really tough one to get past. So, being an operator when you're more just working in the corporate world, at the end of the day, your job might be on the line, but your entire world, your financial wherewithal, the house quite often that you've put on the line to finance your
Hmm.
business. It's just a very different set of pressures, I find. And yeah, being an entrepreneur is not for everyone. A lot of people like the success of entrepreneurialism, but they can't deal with the risk or the constant potential downside, if that makes sense.
And if you can take the pressure, pressure makes diamonds. So you have to be
Absolutely. Great way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah.
you have to be able to withstand a lot of pain. Someone else I had on the show told me that I think an entrepreneur has to have just an incredibly high pain tolerance because you're going to get hit in the face, you're going to have something go wrong, people quit, people steal from you, customers fire
Constantly. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
over and over and over and
Yeah.
over. You have to
And
have a
just when you
time
think
threshold.
things are going great and say, oh, maybe I'm gonna take a day off or not worry about the business for a day or two, it's a whack. Like
Yep.
here's life again. And then just trying to be, I find that this is where a lot of entrepreneurs also struggle and a lot of business owners struggle, even within the context of franchising, because franchising provides a great structure, it provides systems. I said earlier, it provides that leg up in startup where you don't have to worry about like your website and your brand and your SOPs. Like that's such a great uh, toolbox to be able to have from your franchisor. But often business owners and franchisees forget about the human side as well. They're so absorbed in the stresses of the business that they forget about how that shows up when they get home. They forget about, I'm taking my stress home and my kids see it or my partner sees it. And, maybe my partner's stressed about something else at home. And maybe it's not in the top 1,000 things that I'm stressed about in my world, but for them, it is a major stress. And sometimes you kind of diminish other people's stresses based on the stress and the tolerance that you're trying to build up in your world, if that makes sense.
Yep, completely. Well, something you said earlier about building your business as if it's for sale. How does that? Where did that idea come from? I really like that way of thinking. And then how does that actually translate to how you run your business or work on it day to day?
Yeah, so I'm not going to take credit for it. It's something I read. I forget which book, but it was something in a great book I read many years ago. And it was just the concept of, just like build your business as if it's a franchise, even if it's not a franchise, like make it franchisable because it forces you to put the right systems, tools, processes in place. I always say build your business as if it's for sale, even if you're not planning to sell it, for a couple of reasons. One, always have an exit plan in mind. Like, are you building this to pass it on to your kids? Are you
Hmm.
building it to sell it? Are you building it just as a cash flow business that you're just going to run into the ground one day or walk away from? I think always knowing the end game is important, but then how that shows up in terms of build your business so that you're selling it is it changes things from a finance point of view and an operations point of view. So from a finance point of view, it's very common for entrepreneurs, be it in franchising or just general entrepreneurs, to put things through their P&L that, maybe you're not truly part of the business. You're probably putting things onto your books to try and reduce the amount of profit you're making. Maybe you're putting your own personal vehicle through the business, or you're putting more lunches than you actually went out on through the business, or personal vacations. That's common. That happens. But if you're building your business to sell it, I always say you want to have a clean P&L. You want to really make sure that you're not putting artificial, arbitrary things onto your P&L, because the more you have to explain your P&L to a potential buyer, the more red flags are going to get sent up. And then the second thing is always operationally look at what is my involvement in the business. If I, as the owner, I'm kind of like the central hub of everything, and nothing happens without me. Like, I'm the one that owns all the vendor relationships. I'm the one who owns all the client relationships. I'm the one out there making all the sales calls. Do you really have a business, or do you really just have a job? And if someone were to come in and buy the business from you, what are they truly buying if you're the one that controls everything? And that's what I mean by, building it as if you were going to sell it. If you're going to sell it, the person coming in or the company coming in looking at acquiring you, they're going to want clean set of P&Ls. They're going to want an organization, structure, systems, people who are competent and capable. They don't necessarily, unless it's maybe a tech company where it's an acqui-hire, where they're actually hiring the talent, then really, an acquirer doesn't want you, certainly in a smaller founder, owner operated company, they don't want you as the operator. They want to be able to have a company that's going to thrive without you.
Yeah, I completely agree with how you're phrasing. I like the analogy, and it reminds me of Alex Hormozy.
Yep.
He had this. I think it's him who shared this. It was like living in a home. It's this super expensive asset that a lot of people, or many people might own, and you're always talking about doing renovations or home projects and things
Yeah.
like that. And a justification is typically, well, if I do this, garage renovation, or if I do this, it'll add value to this asset that I own, my home, and when we go to sell it, we'll make more money than we would have otherwise. And the analogy is whether you're renovating it for someone else or for selling it, and to your point, building your business and growing it to sell, it's beneficial because when you go to sell it, it's a much better, more higher price premium asset. And if you decide not to sell and just live in this home or run this business or hand it off to your kid,
Yeah.
the house is still a nicer place to live and it's more enjoyable and it's more, in this case, predictable cash flow or better
Yeah.
management team or better
Mhm.
systems. And so either way, you might as well do the work. Yeah,
Yeah.
either way, you might as well prepare for a sale because whether you sell it or not, you are much better off than you would have been otherwise. So I like that constant reminder of, do that work, put the systems in place, get the right team, and build for sale. I like
Mhm.
how you put it.
Yeah. Yeah. And who knows, putting the right people, right systems, right tools in place, what that might do to your business. Like, um, often when the owner operator moves out the way and frees up the space to allow other experiences and other expertise into the room, that's often when the business takes off and is transformational.
One thing I want to ask, when we were talking about team, you've mentioned that you keep the same tight kind of fixed team through a lot of territory expansion. When and if, or I guess when could that possibly break?
In terms of the people around the table, so to speak.
Yeah, so you got your core team, but then you start
Yeah,
expanding into new territories, and many of those individuals you probably want to carry into the expansion because they've already done it somewhere else. They know the business so
yeah.
well. Have you ever seen that break though, or if you're scaling multiple territories at once or different brands, or when have you seen, I guess, that legacy team break down because you're just scaling beyond it?
Yeah, I love hiring from within. I love bringing people along for the journey. But I always use the bus analogy. Like I like to have the right people on the bus, but also sitting in the right seats on the bus. And, you know, people grow, people develop. Like I'm not the same person I was 20, 25 years ago. I've grown, I've developed in certain ways. And I always try and ensure that the rate of change in the business is equal to, if not more than, the rate of change in the people. If the people aren't growing and developing, that's going to hold the business back. And sometimes, we either have to move people around on the bus or the bus stops and some people get off and other people get on. And yeah, there's no hard or fast rule, I find, but it's always about looking where's the business going to be 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road, and what skill sets do we need around the table and what have we got today? And do the people we have today have the ability to get us to where we want to be 6, 12 months down the road? Knowing that there might be development, training, external courses we need to send people on, just expanding your own horizons. But if we're finding that people have kind of hit that glass ceiling for themselves and whatever it is holding them back, sometimes, yeah, they're going to be happier going and doing a job somewhere else, or
Hmm.
or you know, be comfortable that maybe someone's going to be brought in above you to start managing you, where there was no person above you before. Now there is a person above you, and I think that's just, you know, change management 101 in any company is managing those personal expectations, personal desires for growth, and ensuring that those conversations are very open about, where's the company going? Hence, again, the painted pictures, the vivid visions like we had at Modern PURAIR. Where's the company going in 6, 12 months? And where's the gap for you personally? And can you actually get there or not? And if you can't, let's start having the conversation now.
Yep. I've had you remind me of two lessons that I've had. And one is I made the mistake of thinking everyone thinks like I do. They want to be an entrepreneur, they want to be an owner, they want equity. And so I used to feel bad, in one-on-one conversations about goals or compensation. And I eventually realized like not everyone wants to do this. They get the stress that comes with it. They get that, it never turns off. You go home, you think about it weekends, you think about it. Some people love the idea of, I get paid well, I like the people I work with, but when I leave at
Mhm.
5 o'clock, it's Alex's problem now, not mine
Yeah.
anymore. And I just, I don't, and like I want people to think like an owner, of course, but I also can't expect them to if they legitimately don't have ownership and it's not the same level of risk or stakes that I might have.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You just have to, expectations set, like you said, with them and with yourself of what to expect out of your team and an individual who this may very well just be a job that they like and
Yep.
they're good at, and that's okay. The other piece is if you are giving equity, and this is different maybe in startups versus franchising versus other businesses, but an investor told me this and it stuck with me is some people are going to get equity because they joined so early, they had such a critical role, and that equity might be life changing. Maybe they don't have to work again, kind of life changing. Others will have equity that allows them to buy a home. Others will have equity that allows them to buy a car. And equity, some people might have equity that allows them to squirrel a couple grand away into their,
Yep.
their retirement. And that's also okay. You're gonna have this different spectrum of talent and experience and expectations. Um,
Well, and I think what strikes me there, what you were just talking about, is again the human element of really getting to know people and what drives them and understand them. Because I, as an entrepreneur, or we as entrepreneurs, have a certain lens. and it's an odd lens at times. We're a weird, quirky bunch at the best of times, very risk tolerant, and yeah, like you said, it never switches off. Um, you know, I always smile when people are like, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?"
I
As
don't
soon as I
know.
do, I sing. If I do every day, weekends don't mean anything to me. Or when's your next vacation? I'm like, a vacation? What's that? Like, even when I go away, I'm never on vacation. And so, really understanding the real person that you're having that conversation with. What's the real driver for them? Like I said, doesn't, and I don't, there's no right or wrong in someone who wants just a job, just a 9 to 5 versus someone that wants to risk it all and be an entrepreneur. But sometimes, like you said, the equity conversation, sometimes as owners, we get so hung up on what's the right percentage of equity or what's the right package. Sometimes it's about what they want to do with that equity. It's the feeling that they get. I've been in companies where if you actually look at it on a percentage basis, the equity that someone's got, there's a lot of zeros before you get to the percentage. It's like a 0.00000 something. But it's that feeling of ownership that is most important for someone. Or it could be, like you said, the fact that, yeah, with that ownership, they're going to be able to buy a car or maybe pay off a chunk of their mortgage or send their kids to school. And that is profoundly more important than maybe a bonus at the end of the year or like I said, having a life-changing, never have to work again exit. Because I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck on, is building something big and having these big exits and, I won't say cashing out and going and doing nothing, but certainly cashing out in a material way. But for a lot of people, that's not the driver.
Right.
It could just be that feeling and that sense of ownership and being part of something and being almost like on the inner circle, which, on a side note, I'm a big believer in open book financials. Not sharing salaries, but just showing, here's where the money comes in, here's where it goes, here's what we're spending all our money on, and look at this number at the bottom here. That's probably not as big as you thought it was going to be based on the number at the top. And it's always very eye-opening for a lot of people when they see the difference in that top number and that bottom number. And just bringing people along for that journey and understanding the driver behind the eye, if that makes sense. Like, what do people really want? To me, that really helps drive the conversation of, like equity and all that kind of stuff.
I completely agree. You got to ask thoughtful questions, listen, and not project. As easy as it
Yeah,
is to do, as we're human, project your ideas and beliefs onto others. It's not going to fit for every person and situation and stage of company. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
I want to switch gears to more about what you've been working on recently and how you got into it and what that looks like day to day. So why don't you tell us a little bit about modern PURAIR and what's happening there and what you're involved in and how it's
Yeah,
going.
so modern Bureau is awesome. It's expanding. We just launched down. We're obviously coast to coast in Canada. We're indoor air quality experts, focusing on the quality air in homes, businesses. Doing HVAC, duct cleaning predominantly, and then indoor air quality products. We've just launched down in the US. It's exciting times. I joined 3 years ago. I had just exited a public company and just had a young family, so was taking some time off, was looking at a bunch of brands. I was really drawn back into the franchising world again. And I was looking at a bunch of brands down in the US that I was going to bring into Canada. I was working with a franchise broker, and I said to him, just I'll look at anything other than food and beverage because that really wasn't something I was passionate about. And I didn't want to do any more truck-based home service businesses because I'd done a few of those already. Um, and we looked at a whole bunch of different concepts. And after about 6 months, he was like, look, I know you said no truck-based home service business, but I've got this one business I've been dying to show you. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I was like, look, just trust me. Just take a look at it. Just humor me and just have a look at this one business. So I said yes. And of course, it was Modern Pure. And I looked at it, and straight away, as soon as I started looking at it, I'm like, oh, maybe I should not have been so strict on no home service-based truck businesses. Because I started seeing something that was correlated very closely with my early days of 1-800 Got Junk, the passion, the vision, like Lane Martin, our founder CEO, calls it his vivid vision for where we want to take the company, and the energy and the passion, the excitement behind that, and just the rapid rate of change in this business. Like this is a fundamentally different business in a positive way today to what it was 3 years ago. And certain things are really enhancing that we didn't have many years ago. The adoption of technology in this business, the use of AI in this business, the way we're really focused on customer experience and creating an industry where really there is not a great national industry. It's a very fragmented regional industry at the moment. So creating a dominant national brand really does lights me up in the morning, I have to admit.
You can't keep away, it seems like.
No, exactly. And I'm just a sucker for doing things which have a great customer experience to them, a great employee experience, and creating something unique that no one of us could build alone. Like we always used to say back in the early days of 1-800 Got Junk, like it doesn't matter how long you're part of the journey for, but building something special together that no one of us can build alone, where you can look back and go, wow, look at what we did. Look what we created. Look what we were part of. And to be able to replicate that again in a brand like Modern Pure Air, where 3 to 5 years down the road, we're going to look back and go, wow, but we did
I was a
that.
part. I was a part of
I
that.
was part of that. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty
Because
cool.
like, what, 25 years ago, the concept of someone coming to your home to pick up junk, that they would actually come into your home, you'd have a well-branded, well-organized company turning up with clean, shiny trucks and friendly uniformed drivers within a time window that they said they were going to be there. That was revolutionary. No one was doing that. And it created the junk removal industry, certainly the franchised, well-branded junk removal industry. And today, like if you ask people about indoor air quality in their home or duct cleaning in their home, often people kind of look at you with glazed eyes and go, I have no idea what you're talking about. Whereas things like COVID have really accelerated the conversation around, well, what are we breathing in our homes and our workplaces? Is that air actually having an impact on my health and my
hmm
well-being? And I think the conversation over the last few years has really changed, and that when you start looking at 3 to 5 years down the road, the conversations we'll be having around indoor air quality, I think we'll be looking back going, wow, look at like look at what we just created, look at what we did, look at what we made. So yeah, it's really inspiring to be part of.
Well, and I talk to my team a lot about this as far as, do you want a job that is fulfilling beyond, what you do every day for maybe a Fortune 500 company? And a lot of times I
Mhm.
think it's just that people are burnt out on, I'm a cog in the wheel. I feel like what I'm doing is
Yeah.
not super important or impactful. And a lot of the times these fast growing, companies, brands, you're getting to be working on something bigger than yourself.
Mhm.
And it's exactly what you just described, looking back and being proud of what you accomplished and the people you
Yeah.
did it with and the fulfillment. It's hard to replicate until you've been in it. It's almost hard to explain to people, but you can tell
Yeah.
there's this like people that haven't experienced, they're like, I know that this would make me feel better. I need to go jump off the diving board and do it.
Yeah. Which is why I think people, once they've been in a startup, they don't generally tend to go back to big companies, because it's that energy and it's
It's
that
addicting.
sense. It's addicting, and it's that sense of doing something beyond just your paycheck. Money's important. We all need to eat. We all need to put a roof over our head. But often I find it's people they want to be energized. They want to feel like their time is worthwhile. They want to feel like
Mhm.
they're adding value to society, to the world. And certainly in a company like Modern Pure Air, where we're actually making a tangible difference in the quality of the air in people's homes. And that people who are suffering from like asthma or allergies, they're probably going to sleep better that night because of the quality of the air in their home. Like that means something to a lot of people. If you just want to go and get a job and clock in, clock out, that's fine. But I
Mhm.
find once you've had that spark and that flame lit inside you of building something special and creating something special, I don't think it ever really goes away.
No, in this case, the grass can be greener on the other side.
There's always stuff, that regular nice paycheck, benefits, time off. Yeah, there's always things on the other side which are appealing. But then I think on the entrepreneurial side in the startup world, that fast growth, the energy, and that just doing something that makes a
Can't
difference,
beat
you
it. You can't
can't
replace
beat
it.
it. Yeah.
No, that's what I mean. Like you said, people they taste it, they experience it, then they never leave. And that's what I'm saying. Is like the grass isn't always greener. Once you come over, you're like, or sorry, the grass can be greener in this situation where you come over, you
Yeah.
experience it. You're like, I don't
Oh,
want
I
to
see.
go
Yeah.
back to that. I don't
Yeah.
want to go back
Yeah.
and do that again.
Yeah.
One or two last quick questions that are more tactical, and then we have a segment at the end where we do these kind of rapid or faster, shorter questions. But the two that I have are more tactical. You've seen so many, different types of operations. You've seen a number of different franchise concepts. You've been a franchisee. Is there one metric or a small handful of metrics that you look at or recommend people to look at every day that tell you whether a location is healthy or not?
Yeah, I think it does depend, per business. I always do say in every single business, so what is that one number? Like for every single business, there will be one number that if you're looking at that number every single day, you know whether your business is healthy or not. Um, and the one number I'm looking at every single day in Modern Pure Air is what is my pipeline of work. I find that everyone gets hung up on revenue. What did you do in revenue? What did you do in revenue? Well, revenue is historic. I can't do
Lagging.
anything about that. It's a lagging indicator. I always look at what is my upcoming pipeline of work. And by the fifth of the month, what is my predicted revenue for that month? And have I hit my break even point yet? And if I have, great, it's going to be a good month. If I haven't, got some work to do. If by say the 10th to the 15th of the month, what is my pipeline of work for the month? And have I hit my break even point yet? And if I haven't hit my break even point by almost mid-month, alarm bells should be ringing, and it's all hands on deck trying to figure that out for the next couple of weeks. But yeah, the one number I'm looking at a lot is just that pipeline of work for the month ahead. The one we always look at in 1-800-GOT-JUNK is our next available window. When a customer calls in, when is the next appointment time available? Because what we know is the longer people leave it to get the job done, the higher the likelihood that they'll actually cancel or they'll find someone
Hmm.
else. So our major metric there is how do we shorten the time
Availability.
from you calling to the job being done, to the point of even having like a 2 hour next available window. So you call, we'll be there in 2 hours. So every business has that key operational driver and that key number that isn't the lagging indicator of here's how much money we made or how much revenue we have. It's a future forward focused metric that will give you an indicator on how healthy the business is. And I would just encourage everyone to find that one number. It may take a few iterations to figure out what that one number is, but finding that one number, you can literally almost get up in the morning and go, today's going to be a good day or today's going to be a bad day.
Well said, well said. The last question I have for you is around hiring. A lot of people come to Franzi, they come to look at buying a business, and they're wondering, can this be passive? Can this be semi-absentee? And I think the real honest answer is like most business is not passive. There's no such thing as a shortcut or mailbox money. I don't think, and at least in business ownership and entrepreneurship, is you got to put in the work. But there does come a point where the P&L can sustain the ability to hire a GM or more, second line of defense, third line of defense, where you as the owner can become less of the day-to-day operator. What has to be true in your eyes on the P&L for that to start to make sense, for you to start to consider when you could hire a GM? Like, what do you look for? Is it the business is profitable? Is it can sustain that person's salary times two? Is there some sort of kind of trigger point that you look at to say, hey, now we can bring in resources to, free me up essentially, whether that's to go work on more locations or relax a little bit and not be 60, 80 hours a week?
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on what you want to get out of the business. You just said there, like, is it break even? Is it a 2x return? Um, First of all, I think you have to be making money, unless you're willing to fund it through other means, debt financing, personal debt financing. But I think to bring in skilled resources, I think you have to have the business to a point where, financially the business can sustain that additional burden on the business. That there should just be a given, unless you're willing to make the investment for however long. You may say, well, I'm not quite ready to take on the burden of this GM salary yet. I know it's going to be an investment. I know I'm going to have to take less money out of the business, but I'm willing to do that for 6 to 12 months because I know how this person is going to grow the business. Again, back to like the vision and where you see them going. But in terms of, to me, unless you're willing to be the operator forever, which for some people they just love what they do and they want to be the operator. I would say, how quickly can you start putting the right seats on the bus? Now, you might wear multiple hats, like you might have different roles that you're sitting in the seat on, but always building out that org chart to say, as we scale and grow, like I'm just using simple numbers, but as we scale and grow to 500,000 in revenue, what are the roles that we're going to need within the business? And then who's going to fulfill those roles? As we grow to 1 million in revenue, what roles do we need to sustain that business or thrive? And who's going to sit in those seats? And then so on and so forth up. Now, you can have you as the owner wearing multiple hats and have your name in multiple boxes, but I think always knowing what that org chart looks like and kind of at different revenue levels, what gets unlocked on that org chart, and then trying to pass off the things that aren't high leverage, high value, return on investment tasks. So I know in the early stages, you're so consumed with doing everything. You're up late at night, you often doing like the bookkeeping and the accounting and the uploading your invoices. Well, how quickly can you offload that to a professional bookkeeper? And that may even be something really simple, like 100,000 or 200,000 in revenue. Then you can afford to offload that to a bookkeeper. But as the owner in the weeds, knowing that and almost giving yourself like a goal to aim towards, like, I got to get this business to 200,000 in revenue because that's when I can get this painful thing off my plate and give it to a bookkeeper. Or, like I said, investing in that early and going, and to use the bookkeeping analogy, I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm not good at this. I've just literally got a shoebox full of receipts. That's not healthy for the business. I need to invest in that early to unlock my actual superpowers, which is growing the business and getting out there, doing sales and business development. So I don't think there's a hard and fast rule to answer your question in terms of, when should a business be looking at, hiring a GM as an example. I think it's more, what are the roles that you need to unlock to get to the different levels in the business and what's holding you back. And often it's the administrative stuff where someone's like, I don't want to pay that $30 an hour for a bookkeeper or at $15 an hour for a virtual admin, which are some phenomenal services out there now. But if you look at the 5, 10, 15, 20 hours a week that you're taking on all that administrative stuff, is it worth that investment early when maybe you can't afford it to unlock your true superpower as the owner, which is getting out there, talking about the business, building your network, going to, being the mayor of your town, basically, and getting out and talking to everyone about what you're doing. And I would always advocate for, you're probably going to have to invest early in putting some of those resources in place to help you go and free up your superpowers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I look at what is my, cost per hour, not what I would bill someone out if I was a consultant. Like, how do I value my time per hour? Is it $100 an hour? Is it, whatever it is. If there's any tasks that I'm doing on a repeatable or recurring basis that are $20 an hour tasks, I should go hire someone for $20 an hour to do that because my time is better spent in other higher leverage areas. So that's usually kind of a framework I'll give people advice on.
But then the human element of that is, it sounds great, but then when it's an investment. And I think you almost have to have the conversation of, you are going to get comfortable with the fact that you're committing to this for 4, 6 months, whatever it might be. Because when you start spending that $20 an hour and you don't have the $20 an hour to spend, often I find that people kind of withdraw quickly and go, oh, I just spent $1,000 this month on something. I could have done that $1,000 worth of work myself. Okay, but you were, if you did it right, you should now have been spending that time doing things that would generate the $100 an hour in income.
Yep, I completely agree. And it goes back to the, you know, not expectations, but what we talked about almost with team members before. It's like, what do you want out of it too? If you're an empire builder, you probably need to raise some capital and hire bigger
Yep.
teams faster and outsource faster. And if you're more of a lifestyle or, hey, I just want this to replace my income and I'm fine being an owner operator the next 10 years, at least it's mine, it's my
Yep.
business, and I'm happy to be behind the counter every day,
Yep.
then those strategies and those approaches are different. You have to really start with your why and what's pushing you and motivating you to do this in the first place and what makes
Yep.
you happy. And if you owning a good sized business that replaces your income is what makes you happy and that's where you want to stop, then stop there and be happy and do that, and you'll attack it
Absolutely.
differently.
No, exactly. And,
Um,
and I think that's so true because often entrepreneurs and business owners, we forget about the why. We're so focused on the building the business and growing the business and achieving our vivid vision or painted picture that we forget about sometimes, like, why are we doing this? Are we doing this to maximize cash? Are we doing this so that we can have a bit of freedom and flexibility in our world and be home for the kids' soccer games or the school concert recitals or whatever it might be? And if you're trying to build a life that gives you freedom and flexibility, then yeah, sometimes you're going to have to invest in the early days of putting in that infrastructure to help grow.
mhm, completely agree. Well, Alex, I appreciate you coming on. Before we wrap up, I have like one or two quick kind of like rapid fire type of questions
Go for it.
for the audience
What
here.
what what could go wrong?
The the first one is, what's the best advice you have for someone moving to a city knowing absolutely nobody?
Um, Having been there and done it, I would say don't be afraid just to put yourself out there. And don't be worried about getting the no's. People are busy, people are distracted, people are getting bombarded with everything, and just you know, put yourself out there. Go to different events, even if it's things that you wouldn't have thought of doing. Like I remember part of my networking strategy, I went to the local sailing club. It's like
Uh,
25 years ago, where they had, you would stand in a little circle and the people would just be looking for crew members and they would just come along and pick a crew member. I realized after the first time that if you're standing there with a six pack of beer, you're probably going to get picked first. So week two, I turned up with a six pack of beer, got picked first, and I was on a boat for the night with a bunch of business owners. I didn't know that's who was going to be there, but we got chatting, and a few coffees later, some of those guys are friends now. But it's get out there, do things different. Just put yourself into the community. Don't
Mhm.
wait for things to come to you. It's very easy to get lost in just maybe trying to do things remotely or doing things like reaching out on social media. Like that's all great. That's a strategy, but put yourself out there into the community. People will meet you and talk to you if they like you and they want to help you. So just being vulnerable, authentic, and get yourself out there.
Yep. I love it. The next one is, you've mentioned you set goals almost like it's you're going after a world record. You pick one and you work backwards from it. What is a world record that you would actually most likely go after?
Oh, well, so the next world record I have planned for this summer is it's bizarre. It's the most number of selfies taken in 3 minutes. Which yeah. So last world record was the most number of t-shirts worn in a full marathon, and so that was 81 t-shirts over the course of an entire marathon, which was grueling, brutal, horrible, and I shall never do that one again. Running a marathon with it was about 42 pounds of weight on your shoulders is not fun. So this one should be a little easier. Although there are lots of rules that Guinness put in place for world records, and they have to have a different person in every one of these pictures with you. And the current world record is 184. So I've got to do, my goal is 200 selfies in 3 minutes with a different person in each picture. So that's coming up this summer.
Do you have
You're
to
like,
engineer
what?
software to do this, or
No, it's in the rules. You have to no tools other than the camera, and it has to be like a single click for each picture. No selfie sticks, no automated shutter things, no nothing.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you gotta get fat. You
Yep.
gotta. I love it. The next one I have, you wrote a book back in 2007. What's one marketing truth that you think still holds up from that book today?
Um, so marketing has changed in the last 19 years. Wow, that's gone by really quick. Um, so marketing has changed a lot, but what I find is the tactics have changed. Like the advent of social media, digital marketing, that's profoundly changed the whole marketing world. But what I find is the foundational strategies have not changed. And what I mean by that is, I alluded to it earlier, like being the mayor of your town, getting out there into the community, getting to know people, that that speaking about your company, speaking about your brand, that has not changed. If I can say this, the concept of build it and they will come is just for the movies. And that's an old movie reference, and I'm giving my age away yet again. But if you have the mindset of build it and they will come, like I've built my website, so why is there no conversion? Or I've opened up my storefront, why is no one walking in the front door of the store? Even under the guise of a franchise where you've got a brand and systems, build it and they will come does not work, in my opinion. You have to get out there, you have to be part of the community, and you have to tell everyone about what you're doing. I remember a franchisee in or franchise partner in 1-800 Got Junk back in the early days. She was like, if you're not willing to go to your grocery store on a Friday night with your kids wearing your branded clothing in your branded car, like you're not driving your business in the early days. Like if you're not proud to show up and continually talk about who you are and represent your brand and your business and literally tell everyone about what you're doing, you're probably not going to make it, if that makes sense. So being passive and just hoping that you built the best widget in the world is not going to cut it. So from a marketing point of view, yes, the tactics have changed, but that foundation of you got to get out there and you've got to proactively tell people about what you're doing and engage them. I think that will be true for marketing forever.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I've had so many people on panels and other events where they're, oh, you build and they will come. And I'm like, that's such a bullshit,
Yeah.
line of thing.
Yeah.
Like that maybe works for a unicorn amongst unicorns, like that,
Yeah.
Steve Jobs and the iPhone. It's like it revolutionized, how people communicated and accessed information. But that's one out of thousands and thousands and thousands of companies. That is the exception, not the norm. The rest of us
Yeah.
got to go spread the word,
We
market,
got to
and get
hit,
our
yeah, we got to pound the pavement. We got to get at it. We got to do the hard work, and people don't want to do the hard work sometimes.
right, right. All right.
Yeah.
Well, the last question I have for you is, a lot of people listening to the show are exploring business ownership, whether that's franchising or not. But let's say someone becomes a franchisee and they call you in the first 30 days and they're like, this isn't for me, Alex. I need to quit. What's the first thing you tell them?
Don't quit. It will get better. Trust me. Yeah, 30 days in, you're going to have a day like this. 30 months in, you're going to have a day like this. 30 years in, you're going to have a day like this. This is just the entrepreneurial roller coaster. And it's okay. Things get better. Um, and sometimes, certainly if you've never owned a business before or you've never been in franchising before, that reality can bite pretty quickly. Again, if you're coming thinking, well, I bought a franchise, so when I open my door, people will come flooding in the door. And then day one, it's only your friends and family who really like you who have shown up to support you. And you're like, well, where's people I don't know? This it's a reality of business. Business is hard. Business is not for everybody. But have that infrastructure, have that, I always call it the tribe around you, which is why I love franchising, because it's inherently got that tribe of people around you who are there to help support you, to help guide you, fellow franchisees or people from head office and the franchisor. You have those people that understand your world that you can reach out to, connect with, and talk to. Because you're going to have those hard days. You're going to have those days where things didn't work. You're going to feel like you want to quit and just go back to your easy corporate job. And so I always say, just hang in there. It will get better. There's no problem that we can't solve or fix. And yeah, just take it one day at a time.
I completely agree. I tell people you have to stay in the game because as soon as you get out of the game, like you've lost, right? You're not even
Yeah.
participating, you're not playing at that point. Just stay around the hoop, keep trying, persevere.
Yeah.
And a lot of these global accelerators, these tech company accelerators like Y Combinator and Techstars, they will only allow companies in that have you have a co-founder in for the most part because they've just seen the numbers. The co-founders have more success because when one of them inevitably wants to quit, the other one is there to pick them back up and say, hey,
Yeah.
let's keep going, let's keep pushing through another month, another year, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And those ones have a way higher chance of success just because they stay in the game, not because of some Harvard MBA or this experience or that. It's because they are willing to
Yeah.
outlast and stick it out longer than everyone else was willing to do.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I said earlier, like entrepreneurialism is a lonely game. Often people don't understand your world. Friends and family of mine still look at me and go, Your world makes no sense to me. I couldn't do what you do. I would go mad in a minute." And yeah, we are a unique bunch. And so to surround yourself with people and have a network of people who get it and understand it. So when you say, "Oh, I'm having this problem," or "I'm feeling like this today," there's people there who can go, "Yeah, I know. I've been there. I know how that feels. Let me help you. And let me just have the space so I can hear you." Often is what people need when you're in that moment. So
Yep. Well, Alex, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your journey, your wisdom, and everything that you've learned along the way. If the audience listening were to reach out or find you somewhere, where should we send them? Is there an Instagram, a LinkedIn, a place that you want to send people?
absolutely, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn anytime. Always happy to grab a virtual coffee or anything like that. The world has been kind and gracious to me, so I'm certainly always happy to try and give back where I can.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on, and look forward to keeping in touch and talking again soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Alex. Awesome chatting.
Yep. Thanks, Alex.